Hello, I'm David Hill. Welcome to Caldwell County Today. In September of 2003, we were fortunate to sit down with two members of our local National Guard unit and talk about their experiences in the National Guard. But what was unique about the discussion with these two gentlemen was the period of time that they served in that unit. One of these gentlemen actually became a member of our local National Guard unit in 1929, and the other one was able to join in 1940. But this discussion was with Ted Seehorn and CP Kincaid, and probably most of you know CP as Punk Kincaid. But these guys came and sat down with us and talked about their experiences in the National Guard unit way before perhaps most of us were even born. Ted Seehorn actually was 16 years old in 1929 when he first joined the National Guard. And then CP, or Punk Kincaid, joined in 1940 after the unit was mobilized prior to World War II. The unit was a field artillery unit, and in September 1940 the unit was mobilized and actually encamped at the athletic field at Lenore High School. And they stayed there for some number of weeks before they went on to their destination beyond that point. But the unit entered into World War II at that point, and CP and Ted spent some time with us, talked about their experiences, and I think you'll really enjoy listening to these two guys retell their experiences in the National Guard prior to World War II and their experiences while they were with the unit in World War II. A lot of very interesting places they were able to visit, and certainly their time in the service and the places that they ended up in wouldn't be classified as a visit. But 91 guys actually left Caldwell County with this unit. There were about 86 or 87 in the unit prior to the mobilization, but in that mobilization process, some guys dropped out, some guys enlisted, but when the unit finally left here, there were 91 members of that unit. And what's really unique about that unit is that all 91 of them returned home. So join me now as we go back and listen to this conversation we had with Ted Seehorn and Punk Kincaid. Ted, let me begin with you because of the three of us sitting here, I think you're the elder statesman. We won't talk about birth dates, but you were part of the National Guard, the local National Guard unit, way before 1940. How did you get into the National Guard?
I joined the National Guard when I was 16 years old in 1929. As I said a while ago, Cap Williams was our battery commander, the city manager here. Said he wanted me to, met me at school, said he wanted me to join. I said, I'm too young. Back in those days, you usually done what your parents said. I said, well, let's go across the street over there at the barn. My daddy run livery stable. See what he says. So Pappy said, Cap Williams says, Mr. Tom, I want Ted the National Guard. Pappy says, Cap, he's just a young one. Oh, we can handle that. It's okay. And I thought, well, you'll call me in about 6 months. He says, okay, it's a deal. And as we were around the corner, Cap Williams says, be at the Armory tonight. That's how I got in the Guard, and got two very interesting tales, but I shouldn't tell them.
Well, now you tell all the tales you want to.
Well, I mean, this for the short part. I had only been in, Sergeant George Greer, who was later sheriff, was the first sergeant, and had been his assistant, did all the work. And by the way, we were in the upstairs of Sanders Motor Company. It's all just close, real close, same side of the street as where the new police department is. And we had, the Army was upstairs when we left from down there. But getting back to the other part, when I joined at 16, and of course I had to no uniform hardly fit me. I had to cut everything off and all, but 2 weeks after I'd been in there and learned right face, left face, the fire, we always used the fire horn. It wasn't bells, but it's a loud horn. To whenever we used to go to the armory, we were alerted to go to Charlotte, if you can believe it, to be in the parade with some veterans of the Civil War, still living, 1929. And I said to Sergeant Greer, I said, I don't know how to march. And so he says, Ted, just keep your eyes right straight in back of the neck of the man in front of you, have no trouble. We made that. In less than a month, we were alerted again, got the armory. At that time we had Colt 45 revolvers, and we were sent to Kings Mountain to be the personal bodyguard of President Herbert Hoover. Mm-hmm. He was making the address there. Of course, I was scared to death, and the rest of them was all shaking too. I was as close to him as Bill there. And so that was my experiences to start off with. Now, that's all the early experiences really in people you're interested in.
Well, let's talk about that early experience with the National Guard, because from 1929 up until 1940 was a pretty peaceful period of time. What was the role of the National Guard during that 10 or 12-year period of time?
The way the setup was on that, from 25 up till we were mobilized, we were obligated to do drill one night a week. It wasn't two, it was one night a week, and you 15 days in summer camp. That's things you had to do. You also sit there if there was a riot. Fortunately, the Lenore outfit was never called out on a riot. Gastonia, they had in the textile mill, they were called out, and for various things all over the country. We wasn't called, but that is our requirements, 15 days in summer camp, doing actual training. We were headquarters battery, 3rd Battalion, 113th Field Artillery, and the firing batteries had 155 howitzer, a projectile that weighed about 125 pounds. One outfit was in Monroe, one was in Sanford, and one was in Newburgh. We didn't see them in except camp. Our first camp I went to, I should have brought the picture, Fort Bragg. We went for years, Fort Bragg, and naturally they picked out a nice cool month for us to go. It was always August. Burn up in Fort Bragg. Then they switched to Fort Jackson. Then they switched to Fort McClellan, Alabama. We drove motor convoys all the way to Fort McClellan. Then coming on up, in 1939, we was on the Mississippi-Louisiana maneuvers, and in 40, we was on maneuvers there. People remember the red of the 40 flood, which was the biggest and hit the coast here in ages. Mm-hmm. We were marooned there for over a week. Couldn't get the trucks out of the swamps there in Louisiana. Mississippi and Louisiana was the two states was in. We came home not thinking, of course, at that time Hitler was overrunning Europe. We never thought anything about going. And less than 2 weeks after we got home, we was alerted to come to the armory. And Captain Soup Porter, the school teacher, ex-school teacher, one of the finest men I've ever seen, one of the best commanders. He commanded the outfit. And he said, we're on alert, don't go out of town, go anywhere. And the next thing I know, they just popped us in the ballpark, Cook Stadium, with little pup tents. Naturally, 2 men to the pup tent. Dr. Hedrick was the physician to check people out, and new ones come and join. We had 3 or 4 that came in that had some age on them. Jack Matheson, one of them. Ed Tate was one of them. but were a lot older than me, if they think that's possible. But that brings us sort of up to the time we went to leave.
But now, during that period of time, 1938, 1939, when Hitler actually, they were already at war in Europe. Did you guys have any knowledge, any indication?
You know, it's strange, but I think CP can bear it out on there. A soldier, you didn't have it. You didn't think much except what you was doing. And when we was in camp, we'd read the papers and things about it, but it's not like today. We just didn't think about it coming that quick. Then when Churchill and all we was furnishing all kind of stuff to the Allies, and then him and tried to get Roosevelt in it all the time till everybody knows that we had to wait till Pearl Harbor, you know.
All right, but of course, Pearl Harbor didn't come along until December 41. So why were you guys mobilized in 1940?
They were smart because they knew that they was going to take a time to get everybody trained technically and all. But we were one of the first. It's the 30th Division of North Carolina headquarters in Raleigh. One of our members was assistant adjutant general before he retired. But they wanted to train. They were smart in doing it because it took months. It took a year. It'd take any time a year to make any kind of a soldier where he could do it active like he's supposed to. So that's one reason there, but we didn't think it surprised us. It did, and we just took it as a matter of first thing in the Army is discipline. Do what you're told, you know. And they always said there's two ways to do things, the right way and the Army way, but we did it the Army way.
All right, so you guys were mobilized, 1940. You're in tents at the ball field at Lenore High School. Why did they put you up there?
Okay, they put us there because that was part of the start out of a field exercise, you might say. Each man had his issued a shelter half. You buttoned together on that part, lined them up. They had them lined straight and even inspected things. Then we had the grandstand there in bad weather if we needed to get in it, but we were down there for days because everybody had to pass physically and mentally and so forth on it, take the tests and all, and several didn't pass on it. But what amazed me is some of the fellows, real good ones, like CP come a little later, and some of the best ball players Lenore had, UD Pitts, and some of them just fell right in and joined, you know. And until they got it full, the ranks are full on it. And Captain Porter, who was a principal of the school at that time, he'd come from Greenville, North Carolina, had been in the National Guard down there. And he's one of the best commanders I've ever seen because he put confidence in his men, non-com.
See, he was our coach on the football team.
Come from
So
Butte
we all
University.
got together, and all I did, I joined later after they were taken to Fort Jackson.
All right, now CP, when the unit was mobilized, you were not a member at that
I
time?
was not a member at that time, no.
When did you actually join the outfit?
Just quick, it wasn't long after they got in to Fort Jackson.
So
Because
was that still in 1940 or?
That was in 1940, yeah. And they hadn't been there a month or maybe a little longer. I don't know, I can remember now exactly what it was.
All right, but CP, let me ask you though, the United States was not at war.
No.
There was no obligation to join the military. Why did you do that?
Well, there might have been two things. One, my boys that had played football team was there and going. I knew later on I'd be going somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's the best move I ever made in my life. And so I decided that I wanted to be with them. When you look back on it now, we lost no men at Seminole. We were in just as tough a battles as anybody. We could have got killed just as easy, but we had a colonel that kept us right up close to the front lines, which, if you all may not believe it, but safest place, because the shells go over you, and the fighting's up there in front, and if they break through, and we had them to break through on us quite a few times, and they'd tell the infantry to come back and tell you all get out of the way, leave your stuff here, we'll take care of it. And so we'd move back out of the way, and they'd take care of them, and then they'd tell us when to come back. So it.
All right, now, so the unit, after it was mobilized, you're at the ball field at Lenore High School. You stay there until you're ordered to Fort Jackson. Now, how long of a period of time did you guys?
We were down there not over 3 weeks, 4 at the most.
So you were up on the football field for 3 or 4 weeks.
That's right. And then went in our truck. We had our trucks, or transportation and equipment, everything we had, right into Fort Jackson. Went into these pyramidal tents that they had, Tent City or whatever there. We never did move anywhere from that one place there. Did we ever?
No, it had wooden bases, and then you've seen them in pictures, I know, with tents over the wooden bases.
They took our outfit, at the whole battalion, and they picked out and split up to make cadres, people with some several years training. Getting rookies were coming in all the time. Selectees, they call them, you know. And we'd had and we was losing men down there because they were going to send form new outfits and cadres. And we got, most of ours that we got in was from eastern North Carolina, and from the Packer country down there. And some of them were soldiers, and some of them were good guys, and some were characters.
Well, for that 3 or 4 week period, though, that you guys were at the ball field, did you have to stay there? Could you go home at night?
You could go home. It was, in other words, you was really on duty, but you just didn't step out of line too far. And if you left, the first sergeant wanted to know where you was going, when you was coming back. I believe, if I remember right, though, that we did sleep there all the time. I'm pretty sure of that. We got to come home, but I think we slept on that ground, on that soft blanket, you know.
All right, so now comes the orders to move to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. What were you guys thinking at that time?
Well, we knew when we mobilized, we didn't know where we was going, but it just tickled us to death because it was within 175, 80 miles of Lenore, right straight down old 321. So we moved down there, and actually, as CP said, before you started here, there was time that even there, the very first, we thought we was going to the Philippines. That rumor got around and all that stuff, but we didn't take too much for granted on it. But we'd come home on weekend passes if you were eligible and you hadn't been the week before and one thing and another. But back there, and they would arrive back in, I don't know what time, usually my crowd get back in by 4 o'clock in the morning, and they had to be for reveille by all means.
So you'd get back around 4 a.m.
That's right.
To get yourself ready for.
And everybody.
And what time was reveille?
It was quarter till 6. Yeah. Quarter till 6.
So you guys had almost 2 hours to get ready.
But the first thing everybody knew was just SOP, you know, that everybody headed for the showered, put on their clothes, and whatever was going to be the uniform of the day. It might be fatigues or it might be the regular khakis. And got along wonderful on it. And I think that, and the outfit, our headquarters, to clear it up on ours, we didn't handle the guns at all, but our instrument section and all that, and the fire control was all headquarters battery. And we did actual things, Fort Bragg, just to train there just daily like you would today in the modern stuff.
All right, now, CP, after they got down there is when you joined.
That's
All
right.
right, now, how long did you guys stay there?
We stayed in Fort Jackson for 24 months. And we trained and what have you, and had new people coming in all the time and training them, and then we got to sending them out on cadres, as Seehorn said. And then they loaded us up, and I don't want to get too fast on how fast we went, but we left we got on the train, was going, like he said, to the Philippines or the South Pacific. And we had everything on there, ready to go. And about 12 o'clock at night, they sent orders down that we would go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma as school troops. We went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and trained second lieutenants and anybody else that they sent down for artillery and what have you.
But now, why did you guys stay at Fort Jackson for 24 months? What were they teaching you?
There's a lot of mothers and fathers asked us that same question because we thought we never would leave there. But I don't know why we were there, because they had people going overseas and doing things.
But you were still basically an artillery unit, weren't
That's
you?
right. They did not send us, and we kept hold of 30th Division, didn't they?
All right, so Pearl Harbor attack occurs, and you guys are
We're still here.
You're still sitting down there.
Well, we stayed a lot of places. We went to Fort Sill, as I said, and stayed 11 months out there as school troops. Left there and went to Camp Gordon, Georgia, and stayed 7 months there. And we left there and went overseas then.
Well, did you think the war was going to be over with before?
Well, most people said, "You're never going anywhere, are you?" But after we got over there, we had enough of it. But
All right,
we stayed
so-
19 months.
So when did you guys finally get the orders that you knew that you were going to Europe?
That was in February. We sailed in February.
Of what year?
And 42. Gosh, I didn't add all up, but I think it was the last of February. No, it must be
43, probably.
43. I didn't think about that end of it.
Yeah,
but,
because probably if you were mobilized in 40, stayed 2 months or 2 years at Fort Jackson, so it's
that's
probably
42.
40. And then Fort Sill,
43.
43.
Yeah,
It'd
so-
have been 43, February 43. I
yeah,
believe.
probably 43. But now, each time you guys moved from one fort to another, from one military fort to
Base.
another, did you move as a unit? Did they ever start splitting you guys up?
We split. We had men going, like we've said before, we had men going out on cadres.
Of the original 86
Of the red, that's
that
right.
left here.
The older people, most of them, if they're trained enough to go and form another unit,
Yeah.
you see. And most of them were anti-tank, what we sent out. And they had fire and training and all that, and they formed these
All right,
other outfits.
so the unit that you were still with at the time, you guys got on the ship and headed to Europe.
We had a complete outfit, but there was a lot of trainees in with us,
Yeah,
and a number of men that we took overseas. Seemed like to me it was, the old outfit was not over. I forgot exactly what that number was, but something like
Where
that.
did you guys go, though, when you got over there?
We sailed into the Firth of Clyde in Scotland, and went to Glasgow and stayed there about a month, and then left from there. We didn't do hardly anything there, but just waited around. And then they sent us to Chepstow, England, and we stayed there till we had to go overseas. We landed D plus 32, and they were only 3 miles in when they brought us in, and that's a little close for artillery. But that they could handle it with that.
So they'd been fighting for 32 days?
That's right.
And still had only advanced
That's
3
right,
miles?
because we could not get in there. Our guns were too. We had to wait till they got room enough back here for us to off of the beach to set up our artillery. And that's the reason we went D plus 32.
So you were lobbing those
Yeah, we were.
those big shells over
That's right.
over into the
And
German.
then they got to moving out so fast, and stop me if I get to going too fast, because it's that war went fast after St. Lo breakthrough. I don't know whether you've ever seen number of planes that went in there to get the breakthrough. It was something. We stood on a hill over there and watched planes come over and the bombing, and it was about 3 miles away from us, and our clothes were doing just like that. And we were just standing on the hill there, waiting for them to tell us that we had to move or what we had to do. Because
All right, but once that breakthrough started, where did you guys go from there?
we just followed whatever the war went to.
Just wherever.
But, different. We finally ended up, the first town we went into to stay any length of time was Aachen, Germany. And when they took over Aachen, Germany, they made military government out of us. We give up our artillery outfit because they had more than they needed, and the war was going too fast at that time. So we took care of the Germans, took up their guns, be sure there wasn't anybody left behind causing any trouble, and feeding, be sure that they was taken care of.
So it ended up being a prisoner of war camp?
Yeah, well, we went in there and went into to the war camp, the ones that had, Germans had places that they had these Jews in, you know, and they were, gosh, I went in the Nordhaus, and you wouldn't believe, they had little old cubby holes not over that square that people slept in, and we had to bring people out of there that was already dead.
Yeah.
And some of them were just barely alive, and we would take them out, and they would walk a little bit. And we, you know, getting them all out, they'd not paying attention, and some of them would walk, say 100, I remember one walking about 200 feet, and there's a culvert there over a pipe that come out from under the road, and we found him later on. He had died out there on that thing. But we had to look after that, some of those things, but most of it is right in the towns that happened to be.
But now when you went to Nordhausen, a lot of people were already dead.
Oh, yeah. And then we called, we had our people got after the town people and said, you'll come and help us bury them. But they didn't want to do it, and they said, you'll either do it or I don't know what else would have happened. But they made them come out and help them bury them because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And their bodies, you know, they're starved to death because you could see no fat on them, every bit of their bones are showing through their skin. But it was something.
But the townspeople did come.
They come and helped us
and helped
bury
bury
them. And,
But now what kind of medical care was available for those prisoners that were still alive?
Well, I'd say we took care of them. See, we didn't have anybody in that. We took care of that, but we had, I'm sure that we had our medics that looked after them. They were bound to have, because there wouldn't have been many doctors in each town. Some of them had gone on with the Army or something.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any part of that part of it. But
Now, at that point, CP, how many of that original 86 from Caldwell County were still part of the unit you were with?
I think it's around 50-some, 56 or something.
I'd make a guess at about 50.
I believe it's around 56. I don't know exactly what that number is.
But now, Ted, you weren't with them at that point, because you got sent somewhere else, didn't you?
Yeah, the week before the outfit, the regional outfit, was assigned to Fort Sill as school troops. They sent me to school in Aberdeen, Maryland, where they had artillery, they had automotive, they had welding, they had Air Force and everything, and they put me in the Air Force section specialized in aircraft weapons, 20, 30 millimeters and so forth. And I was in that for, I went there in the month that I went there. CP was in April. I think you all left in the spring for I know you had heard you left just after I did for Fort Sill. I never did go, wasn't there. But the school up there lasted until December. And they commissioned me a second lieutenant, and they had on a board this 250 that was in the class, and 125 that graduated. You never did know where anybody's gone. You just got bumped beside you, and there's nothing said. You didn't ask no questions. But anyway, I think I went before the board about 3 times, and each time I said, well, I'll be sent back, I guess. And I come through, but they had on a board to suggest a place you'd like to go, base you're assigned to. And when I saw Greenville, South Carolina, and Earl Simmons was out there from New Bern, and I told him, I said, let's pick Greenville. He says, Ted, don't you know that the Army does things the right way? He says, if you pick Greenville, you'll probably wind up in California. But I picked Greenville and come there and was put in the plans and training officer there at Greenville Army Air Base. Colonel Oliver Stout was the commanding officer. Stayed there. Ruby and me lived at Greenville from about November of '42 all the way up until I was volunteered without letting her know. And there was staging area was in Greenville, South Carolina, in Aiken, South Carolina, which is not too awful far from it. Sent into Aiken, South Carolina, and people I'd never seen before. Nobody, most of them were northern. But anyway, I didn't know where I was going, didn't have very good sense, as you know, or I would have volunteered. Because I had a good job there to be. The other one, it wasn't out any heroic things. It was just a case of not knowing what to volunteer.
Well, now, before you continue with that, go back. How and when did Ruby come in the picture?
She come in the picture, we met in the fall of '41. We were married the 3rd day of April, '42.
Now, where'd you meet her, Ted? Where did you meet her?
Met her at the little town of Mount Holly, that's close to Charlotte. They had her sister was dating one of the boys in our outfit, Elwood Pinson. And so it's just a chance, this thing, the good fate, I'll say. But I had GMC pickup truck and had weekend off, and Elwood said, let's go to, how about going up Mount Holly? He was dating Ruby's cousin, I'll get it right. And because we've been married 62 years, I'm entitled to make a mistake.
Yeah, that's all right. But now you were supposed to have been down in Jackson, South Carolina.
Well, I had already gone through school Aberdeen, Maryland, and been sent to Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
But when I met her, I was right there as first sergeant in the outfit in October of 1941. And so then we married in February the 3rd, our 61st, well,
That's close.
That's close enough.
That's close.
and I've got the Silver Star for she has for living with me. She's got a good one.
I don't doubt that one bit. All right, now get back to your military. Where are you going next?
Okay, we're in the staging area in Aiken, South Carolina.
You volunteered.
Yeah, there was Air Force. I didn't see anything but Air Force people. I'd already been changed from ordnance up there to Air Corps. This big, fine-looking full colonel, Colonel Gardner, got to talk to me and meet him. Our little mess hall, or officer's mess, was just made out of slabs or something, little place we'd meet. And one day, I'd say a week after we'd been there, he said to me, he said, Teddy, I'd like to have you in my outfit. And I said, well, where are we going, Colonel Gardner? Well, I can't tell you that. He says, I can't tell you honestly anything about it because it's a secret meeting. And I said, well, I went artillery, a farm for an inn. I know a lot about horses and mules, but I said, they've got us all went through school up there. What would you want with me, Colonel Gardner? If wherever you go, whatever. He said, I'd want you for heavy-duty automotive maintenance officer. And I said, oh, well, I should make an awful good one because I was raised as horse and mule and didn't get a driving license until I was 25 years old. He said, Teddy, you won't have to do the work. You'll have 100 mechanics, welders, machinists, which is right, all trained. And I thought about it. I said, well, and you can't tell me, no, I can't tell you anything about it. 2 days later, I asked him, would he bring a roster of them men? Was they, after we got on the ship, I got ahead of myself, we shipped out quick to Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Okay.
And part of this I'm not going to tell. It's all true about it. But anyhow, everything I'm telling you is the truth there. But I was turned down in Greenville, South Carolina. Hate to use medical terms on here, pilonidal cyst. That's all right to say that on there, isn't it?
Well, I don't know what it is.
There's not many people.
So I was turned down for overseas. I'd volunteered that time, turned down hospital operation, second 2 operations. So I had 2 and then got through. And Colonel Gardner, when we was loading up to go to we don't go into Hampton Roads, leaving from Augusta, Georgia, which just across the line from Aiken. And I said, what are we going to do if they turn me down up there again? I've been turned down about 3 times. He said, we'll get you on the ship and you won't take any physical at all. And I got on the ship a day ahead of everybody by myself and peeped over and watched them coming up the gangplanks to go. And he said, when we get out to high seas, there'll be nobody can turn you down. But this is interesting to you. I hope it is. The name of the ship that I went over on was the Athos II, which was a converted French liner. It had come into New York Harbor, passenger ship, high-priced thing. When the Germans took France, they couldn't go back. And the United States hired them to ferry troops wouldn't send them back to Europe, to the Pacific. I don't know how true it is, but they said our voyage was the longest of any one single. We had no escorts, period, of any one during the whole war. 2 days out, had about 3,000 men on the. Still didn't know where it was going. Didn't know whether it was going to a 22 rifle range or a bombing group or what. I was standing looking over the deck and saw some weeds floating around down. I was hoping it was going to England, because I'd always wanted to see England. I just knew that's where it was going. Saw Colonel Gardner down. I said, Colonel Gardner, come here a minute. Come over. I said, what am I seeing? He said, Teddy, them seaweeds. I said, well, best of my geography, the seaweeds didn't grow toward England, did they? He grinned. He said, we're heading for the Panama Canal. Then it would be too long a story to tell you that we was on, from the time we left there, we was 80 days later, we landed in Bombay, India. Ship broke down about 3 times. Had no escort till we got to West Australia, and then they give us destroyer escorts up through there. And
But you went to Bombay first.
Bombay.
And then from Bombay to Australia?
No, I went to see, we followed, crossed the equator I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
But see, you remember, you're going through the Panama Canal, and that's Venezuela's over here, going on. And pretty well the center part went, we refueled at Bora Bora in the Tahiti Islands. Then we headed sort of south. We went through the Bass Straits, which is the lower south corner of Australia, that's noted for the high waters. It was over the top of that big ship. Went all the way around Australia and landed at Fremantle, which was a port on West Australia. And it broke down again. They worked on the turbines. And we just joined forces by a ship that had, I don't know the exact pronunciation, one of you 3 will know, Aborigines in Australia, the natives, you know, like our native Indians. They had a shipload of them going. And
Yeah, I think some people call them
Aborigines.
Aborigines.
Yeah. But they treated them awful, I mean, to start with. But they're in Bombay, and we'd been instructed by the CO, and so forth. Now, understand, we still didn't know what we was going into. It was kind of outfit and nothing else.
Now, what year are we into now?
We're into 44.
Okay.
See, we left in 43, but it's in 44.
Right.
It took 84 days to. So anyhow, they had warned us on the ship, or not warned, everybody says, now don't let this poverty and let these poor Indians get to your pocketbook. He says, he says, I know you're going to be sorry for them, but says there's so many million of them. Well, the only man I knew or got to know, Roy Johnson, was from Charlotte. He and I was pretty buddy. We hadn't got off the ship on the dock there and hadn't gone 30 feet till the little children there with their eyes just about to pop out, and this CP told about the people the Jew people in trouble in Europe. Ribs are showing, stars. They knew one word and hold out their hand. Boxies, sob, boxies, gimme, anything. Well, in 200 yards, Roy said, Seehorn, you got any money? I didn't have none. He said, I ain't either. We loaded on a train with plank seats and no accessories, I might say. 5 days and nights we rode it and landed in a place called Kharagpur, India, which was 80 miles southeast of Calcutta. Calcutta at that time was the biggest city, and that's where we got all our thing. And then we knew where we was, and you was put up in the tents, and you had poles and ropes across, and no mattress. That's where it was there. But then we learned that that already before we got there was a B-29 base there, you know. That's the one we were to support. And I had there at the automotive, down in the jungle part there, we had had trucks with the welding outfits in them. They had machine shops in them, had portable stuff where you could move it. But we stayed there, and I mean, truthfully, let me say one thing. I know it's going to sound crazy, but when we was on the ship, I'm going to back up to one thing. When Colonel Gardner brought them men up on there and had the roster with their names, and I'm like CP, I mean, tell the truth about whatever happens. But there they line up, and then their fatigue clothes, and been down the hole, half of them sick. And I had the rosters, and on top was Master Sergeant Eugene Mitchell. Later found out he was from South Dakota and run his own garage, but he was my right-hand man. But I did this. I introduced myself, and I said, I'm Lieutenant Ted Seehorn. I'm assigned as in charge of the heavy-duty automotive maintenance. Gentlemen, I don't know one thing about this, all that. I was assigned to this. You're all trained. I'll do anything I can. I'll look out for you in every regard and stick with you. But don't bring me no technical stuff and expect me to answer it.
Yeah.
We had no trouble. In fact, they won an award in the Pacific. That boy did. Now, I've been too windy with you on this stuff. I know anything on it, but
Well, let's leave you there in India for just a little while.
it's hot over here.
Yeah, let's go back to Germany. Now, CP, you're at this concentration camp, Nordhausen. Now, how long did you guys stay in that area?
We stayed was in there about, seemed like to me it was about 2 months. And then we kept following along as they took towns.
Mm-hmm.
And they would tell us where to go. We went from there to Cologne.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd skip the little towns, which some of them failed. I failed to call them now. Our outfit, see, we had people from Monroe, we had people from, in our whole outfit, that's everybody, the fire and batters and everybody. We had from Monroe, from Sanford, from Kinston, Goldsboro, and Lenore.
Sanford.
We took 200, I believe it was the whole outfit is 200 and some men. We lost 5 men during the war.
Yeah.
Died and got killed. 2 of them was in our outfit, but they didn't come from Lenore. They were people that come in as draftees. One of them was leading. He was French, but he's American, but he could speak French, so he went with the captain all the time. And when we were in France, and he stepped up on one of the trucks to lead them into where they were going to take them. And they drove out through a field and hit a mine with that front wheel, and it killed him, knocked him off. We had another one killed in our outfit that got into a Jeep, and the Jeep has a top that laid down. I know you know all about them, and it had a low round bar. And he had some hand grenades on his belt, and he got in and he drug one of those pins out as he got in, and he just went on and sat down because he didn't know he'd pull that out. It killed him, but it didn't kill anybody else. There's some men in the back seat and on the side of him. But he got killed there. And then we had another fellow that got killed. One Sunday morning we called him, they called us to eat pancakes, and you could get that whole bunch up when you hollered pancakes because they had other things, field rations and everything, but they'd tell us that we was going to have pancakes. So one of them said, Magellan has not got out. not come, said, where is he? And they hollered for him because they knew he was over in a pup tent. And what we'd done, we just cut a hole out in the ground and we slept in that with the tent over the top of it. One of the boys saw him start to come out, and just as he got to come out of that tent, 88 hit right in that, right on top of him and blew him up. But we had 5 of them to get killed during the war, and we always blamed it on our colonel that kept us so close to the front, because they said he really looked after it and believed in that more than most people in the artillery would, because everything went across the top of us, or either just once in a while we were back.
So now, did you stay in Germany?
No, we were High Point men, so we'd been in there so long. We were the first ones that come. Well, we stayed about a month before we got to sail. Some of our men looked up and went a different direction. They split us all up.
Yeah.
And some of them went and come back on the William Mary.
And where did you go?
I went to the Mediterranean, and I came back on USS General Elgin, which was the biggest troop ship the Navy had at that time, and we sailed out of Marseille and came back that route.
Came back to the U.S.?
Came back to the U.S., and then we came into Camp Perry, and then come on into Fort Bragg, and then we were
Okay.
turned loose from there.
Okay. All right, Ted. Now we got CP back to the U.S. now, but we still got you sitting over in India.
Right.
All right. And so where'd you go from there?
We were in India for practically a year, and the B-29s were flying to Singapore. Some of the runs were 18 hours. We saw and talked to the pilots. As you know, mine was ground force with automotive, but we was all connected. And almost a year, Colonel Gardner one night said to me, says, get Lieutenant Wakefield, supply officer, and 2 enlisted men, and be down at the airport morning at 5 o'clock and meet Colonel Watson. And I said, where are we going? He said, just go ahead and what I said. But when you get over there, get an automotive maintenance shop built. We've been operating in the bushes. I don't know how in the hell we was going. I didn't know where we was going. But anyway, we met and we flew the hump. Needless to say, I did not sleep nor close my eyes. I was scared. I had 2 child dogs stayed with me. They were mascots on it. By daylight, landed in Kunming, China. That's advanced base for the B-29s, because it's too far them to go without refueling.
All right.
That landed there and stayed about an hour in the rain. Took off just before daylight. One of the flight officer, one of them come back where I was. And I said, what am I looking at? He said, that's going to be home. And it was Tinian, and they were still grading and everything. So to make a long story short, we landed in Tinian. He had not given me any papers or anything at all to get an automotive maintenance shop built. And we spotted, Wakefield and me spotted some Seabees. And the Seabees were workers, and they had all kind of equipment down there. And we made arrangements with them, and they built the automotive shop. They graded out for a volleyball court for us. We had to have a little recreation.
Yeah.
But my tent was not over, I'd say it was 100 yards from the runway of the B-29s. I won't tell you all that I was a personal friend of Colonel Tibbetts, because I wasn't, but I saw him many times and was up the night. I think everybody in the place, the first time we knew this atomic bomb was there in August, whatever, 3rd or whatever it was.
Now, for those people who may not know who Tibbetts
Colonel
was,
Tibbetts is the man. Colonel Tibbetts was the only man trained on the atomic bomb, and from what I can gather, his bombardier didn't know when he dropped the bomb that it was an atomic bomb. Tibbet, I don't know how he stood the pressure. And the name of his plane is the Enola Gay. It's in the Smithsonian Institute now. They tried to put it in several years ago, and the Japanese ambassador objected, and they said they didn't want to make anybody mad, so I think they changed new head of the Smithsonian, and it's there now. And there, anybody that's not seen one are huge planes, but he was the first, and they, on Hiroshima, but the thousands of leaflets had been let out and tell them that the Japs said it did have something that they didn't want to use it. It's terrible. And it's been debatable whether crewmen give the order or not, but anybody knows that it was good, because on Tinian, right there next to it, was Saipan, and when the war was over, there was 5 or 6 divisions there. Everybody was going to have to invade Japan, go in like they did into Normandy and all that stuff, and it had been killed off. So that's the best thing that happened. But anyway, I stayed there. As I said, it's all strictly military. They wanted all the vehicles inspected, and as far as I know, they just rolled off the cliff later on. You couldn't bring stuff back. Countries couldn't.
All right, but now on Tinian, of course, you nor anybody else really knew anything about the atomic bomb. So what was going on there? What did you guys think was going on there?
We knew they were running their missions to some to Japan. They were using lighter stuff, you know. They wasn't using the type bombs. They didn't have it. It had never been mentioned. About 1 month before the first bomb was dropped, a strange bunch of, looked like scientists, only had beards, started eating at our mess hall. Sergeant Mitchell asked me one day, he says, "Who is them birds?" I said, "I don't have any idea." They were trained in New Mexico with the B-29s on the atomic bombs. They were scientists, or actually in science crew, knew how to handle them, how to load them, and all that stuff, and the whole thing. So they didn't speak to nobody, tell anybody. We didn't know what these are. Colonel Gardner said to me the night before that we went up to wing headquarters, he said, "Get Roy Johnson, Wakefield, we're all going to wing headquarters." So we got there, and they had a big tent, and this general who had come from the Third Army in Europe over there and took over there while we was in India, I never will forget. He says, "Gentlemen, tonight we're going to make history, that we're going to drop an atomic bomb." And says, we warned Japan all the way through. And he didn't introduce Colonel Tibbets, but they told us that he was the one after that. So we stayed up all night and watched him take off about 7:30 that morning. And I talked to pilots.
But the night before, LeMay actually told you guys they were going to drop the atomic bomb?
Yeah. So he told, the officers had called up to wing headquarters, and of course some brigadier general introduced General LeMay, Alan LeMay, and he said, "We're going to make history tomorrow." Mm-hmm. See, that's how come nobody, and Colonel Tibbets, they said, was sworn to secrecy. None of his closest friends, his family, his bombardier, none of them, he'd been trained on that bomb. And of course, I didn't know till years after I got back from over there about the Indianapolis that had atomic bombs on it, and the Japs torpedoed, about the day after they got the bombs over there. You read that in history.
But
Tinian.
before LeMay told you guys that, knowing how people talk, rumors, I think they call them. Mm-hmm. When you see all these bearded civilians coming there, what were you guys talking about? What were the rumors?
It was not anything, we just couldn't figure it out, because in the Air Force they did expect you to shave. But I mean, it was clean cut fellas. They could have passed for doctors. and I'd say there's a dozen of them. But we just actually went on with our job and eat same place they did, and they had their tent out there about by themselves. But they were there, and they were the ones that loaded the bombs on. And I did talk to one lieutenant. I had the opportunity, which I turned down right quick, was to go back to see Hiroshima, you know, after seeing there. Talked to several people that saw it, but one lieutenant pilot told me that when the bomb was dropped and when it exploded, that the B-29 went in the air over 1,000 feet on concussion, as big as the B-29 was. And the sad thing about Colonel Tibbets, when he come back to the States, a lot of people just about near classed him as a murderer. And he was people that, you know, takes all kind of people to make the world. To my knowledge, he doesn't belong to any veterans thing. He's alive. He's the same age as me, about 89 years old. But it just killed him, hurt his pride, and hurt him thinking he would give his life for the thing there, you know. But that happened. But when they did call, say, peace, that's the first time that we'd ever got to go to the beach, which was the beach all around you know. But there's a big let up. But interesting to know, the B-29s, I personally did see, I didn't in India, but when they were bombing, before the atomic bomb, I'm going to say I saw as many as 5 different B-29s go down in the sea when they left the runway, either overloaded or didn't have time to do the maintenance or what. I mean, crew and all. I don't know how anybody survived or not. But it was that. But I'll tell you, it was just got nothing to do with Tinian. But ever since I've been in the National Guard, my heart went out in appreciation to the infantry and the artillery and any of that stuff. There's never anybody ever spent 30 years in service that's been as lucky and blessed as I have. Sort of like Will Rogers said that everybody couldn't be a hero. Some of us has to sit on the side and watch them go by. That's the way I feel about it, just watch them go by.
All right, but now how long did you stay on Tinian? After you knew the bomb was going to be dropped, and after it was dropped, how long did you guys stay there?
Okay, it was dropped in August. Peace was made in the formality with MacArthur in Japan in September, and most of them was gone just right away. But as I say, they kept me. It took over a month, and then they called me up there. Had a little makeshift headquarters left up there, and I had been promoted since I was a captain then. But anyhow, they says, Captain, you're eligible. Your work's done over there, and you can next to go. When can I go? Go tomorrow. And how am I going? Such and such a B-29. I said, if it's all the same to you, I've been this thing so long, I'm going to wait on a ship. But it might be a long time. I said, well, I can wait. So he sent me over to Saipan, which was just across the bay. It looked like you could throw the ball. It's 3 miles across it to Saipan. And I stayed there and went to the orderly room every morning to see if there was any word. And the last, after 2 weeks, they come down to get me. Said, you're from North Carolina, aren't you? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I've got nothing else. He says, I need one officer. Said, there's 75 enlisted men, black soldiers, been over here, engineers, 2 or 3 years in the Pacific. They need an officer in charge to go to Fort Bragg I said, that's almost home. I said, lead me to them. We had the best bunch you ever seen. They had a big first sergeant in there, and we rode the boat was about 2 weeks and landed in San Pedro, California, and we caught a train, the southern route, all the way into Fort Bragg, shook hands, and they went their way and I went mine.
All right, so are we still in 1945? We're past September.
We're 46.
October, we're up into 46
Yeah, because
now.
it was a little after Christmas when I got
Yeah.
through there. He's 46.
But now, CP, you'd been home a while by that time.
That's right. I got home in October of 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, his war over in June, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, but now
Because we were a number of, had large numbers, which you could have, they counted numbers of how long you'd been in service
Yeah.
and all that. And so we got to come home before most of them did.
so they had a point system, didn't they?
Yeah,
You got
point,
points
yeah.
for being in and
That's right.
so forth. All right, but now when you guys got back here, was there still a National Guard unit? When you guys came back, were you still in the National
He'd
Guard?
have to tell you that. I wasn't
They
in
had
the
the,
National
they
Guard.
had the state guard. It was organized, and it was made up of some good people, maybe just one with flat feet, didn't pass for the thing on it, and maybe somebody married on it, but they used the Jennings building there where we moved out of, upstairs there, and in fact, after we got back and talked to them there, but it is just strictly from the state, and it was there to help do what we used to do at the National Guard. If it had been riots or whatever, they didn't have all equipment, but they had some. But it stayed in, somewhere in the history it's listed, but it stayed in effect until we got back. And it took us nearly a year to get back and form and go back in the Guards again, and then to build the armory.
Now, CP, did you continue on with the
No,
Guard? Once you got home,
Well, I stayed down.
you'd seen enough of the world at
That's
that
right.
time, hadn't you?
And I got married on the 15th of December, and so I went to work. Well, I done a couple of jobs, and I was going to find out what I could do, and I didn't like some of them. So in about a year, I went to work with the engineering department with the highway department. And I stayed with them for 30 years, and I built bridges, I built most of the roads around here. Of course, I had contractors under me.
Mm-hmm.
I had 8 counties I worked out of, and so I worked with them the whole 30 years.
So you retired from Department of Transportation,
That's right.
what, in the late 70s, late 1970s?
74.
1974?
Yeah.
So what have you been doing since 1974?
I've been traveling some and just enjoying and doing what my wife wants me to do. Well, my first wife, she was teacher at Hudson High School. She went from there to some of the first people that they started the college with. She went over there. Claudia Kincaid was her name. She died in June the 5th of 92. And I married Helen Sullivan, which is Tom Sullivan. Most people know him. I married his widow, and we've been traveling and enjoying life, and I'm going to go as long as I can. I'm in good health. So.
Now, you were already back home at the time the atomic bombs were dropped. Or were you still?
No, I was in England,
you're still over
in
there?
Germany. I was in Germany when they dropped it, because we didn't know what the heck it's talking about.
So you guys didn't know what to think of that?
No, we couldn't even conceive of anything being that powerful.
Yeah.
But
But now, after they dropped the bomb, did they come back to the base?
Oh, yeah. They had, I forget how long it took. It was a pretty long run, but they landed there without any problem. I have to back up just 1 minute to be interested. When General LeMay come to our outfit, this is interesting, we wasn't doing too much good. We were missing our targets a lot. He had a big meeting. One of the pilots told me himself, and he says, gentlemen, we're now no longer going to bomb from 25,000 feet. Said we're going to bomb from 10,000 feet. And a brigadier general spoke up and said, sir, that'll get a lot of planes and kill a lot of us people. He said it'll kill a lot of Japs too. They did. They lost some, but that's when they could hit the targets.
Yeah.
On that low altitude stuff on it.
But now, did both planes, the two different planes that were carrying the two atomic bombs, the one that was dropped on Hiroshima, the one that was dropped on Nagasaki, did they both leave
From Tinian?
from Tinian?
As far as I can remember, they did. I think it was all carried out from. We had two wings on Tinian. Guam and Saipan had one wing each. Ours, 20th headquarters thing, I think it was both from there. And we were the smallest island, if you look on the map.
Now, and those bombs, they had some nicknames for those two bombs,
They
didn't they?
did, but I don't remember I remember one of it when you mentioned something about that Big Boy and Fat Boy.
Yeah, they named one of them Big Boy and the other one Fat Boy. And I don't remember the name of that other airplane. Of course, the first one was the Enola Gay. And I think that was named after
His mother.
somebody's mother, wasn't it?
His pilot's mother, Colonel Tibbetts.
Yeah.
But I know ourselves, within ourselves, are talking in the barracks or in, not barracks, the tents and all. I'd say to Roy Johnson, I wonder how heavy what weight bomb it was. That was all around them, and the soldier, not civilian. We didn't know how heavy it was.
Yeah.
Was it 2,000 pounds? Was it 1,000 pounds? Yeah, I think in history, since I've read about it, that the thing was over a ton or more.
Pretty heavy.
But they told about them from the size of a shoebox on up. You know, nobody knew. They'd never seen it. And his bombardier, Colonel Tibbetts' bombardier, just died last year, and he was from Moxville, and a big old country boy. And Tibbetts went to his funeral. But he said he'd made just some remark that he didn't know that he had dropped an atomic bomb. That's how secret.
Yeah.
I wonder if they could do that in things now with the news media and all that goes on. And could you fight a war in a more outlet?
They'd probably have a reporter inside the airplane reporting on the bomb being dropped.
It's different, but it's so technical and all that it's just amazing what military's come to.
Yeah. Well, Ted, now let's talk some more about after you got back home. CP went into, he got completely out of the military, but you stayed associated with it, didn't you?
We stayed right with it in the, went to drill just as regular, went to summer camp all the way through there, and you know, we went in 40, I said September 40. Then in September of 50, we were put on alert for Korea. Mm-hmm. You know, the Korean War is 50-53. So Ruby and me had bought a farm, 140-acre farm. She'd been raised in the city. I'd taught her, she had chickens, she trained cows, pigs, and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, we're on alert. And of course, we owed about 99% of what the farm was, but we was happy and it get along. So it just got hotter and hotter. And I said to Ruby, I said, Lord, I don't know. We had the two children. We had before Cindy was born. And I said, if they take me, I said, you know, I'm going to Raleigh. I got in a wore-out car and drove to Raleigh, and back then you could talk to the adjutant general like you could private.
Yeah.
Because and old General Metz. And he invited me in up there to the office and sat down. I said, General Metz, of course, you know what, we're on alert and all that, but I said, you know, I just got back. It didn't too awful long, got out. And I got a farm, got all this stuff there. Just, I would be exempt, I'm sure, if he come up. He said, exempt? He said, Seehorn, you'll be the first one goes. I come back home, my head hanging between my legs and all that. But anyway, there's always something, fate or whatever. Just the next day, Irvin Smith, that was a Ford dealer at Smith Crossroads, sent his foreman, Glenn Moore, to see me. And they knew, the whole town knew was on alert. Ted, will you come and work for me as salesman till we have to go? Well, nothing else to do, went there. No social security number, never had work for anybody. Put me in sales there, and tractors, farm equipment tractors, and trucks. That was in September of 1950 when I went to work there. And 30 days, more or less, 30 days later, the alert went off, and they took another outfit. And in the meantime, I'd sold the farm. I sold it in 3 days after.
You sold it because you thought you were going to
have to go. And several, of course, for a while, I'd be awake at night, and Ruby finally said, if you don't quit worrying about that farm, said, Ted, don't you know if you'd have went to Korea, you could have been killed in the first place. I don't want to hear no more of it. And I quit worrying.
And that's the last you talked of it. Well, now, how long did you work for Irvin Smith?
Well, I didn't stay long with him. I stayed till he died in 1973. So I was with him.
23 years.
With him, then his family still controlled. And 2 years later, 75, they didn't know a dime on it. The biggest Ford dealership in North Carolina had everything from tractors to the big trucks, the whole caboodle. And his heirs wanted to sell it. It was then when 74 and 5 is when gasoline got getting high and people got afraid they couldn't drive nothing but a diesel or a Volkswagen. And I begged them, asked them, I said, you're making a mistake. They sold it, and the fellow who bought it was from Charlotte, final command you ever saw, Skidmore. Now that was in 75. And he come through there one day and he says, you the truck sales manager? I said, yeah. We'd already sold tractor stuff to the Carters. Well, I want you to stay, and I'll pay you more than what you got wherever you work for here. And I said, well, we'll start out that way, and if I suit you, that's fine. If you suit me, if we don't, if we part, there'll be no hard feelings. And I won't go into details, but in about just a few months, I saw that he's used to selling in a big city, and I was used to country folks, and I picked up the phone and went to work over at Morganton with Giles' little outfit. Stayed with them till they closed. Come back in 1980 and got home, and I told Ruby they'd closed. Well, she says, I know you're going to work somewhere. Where are you going to work? I'd already been down to Ford Place, they'd sent for me, and it was too fancy for me. And I called Rooster Bush and sold against him for 20-some years. We're still good friends. And he said, you out of work? And I said, yeah. He said, well, come down here in the morning. So I stayed with him until 1990. That gave me a total of 40 years. So I got my diploma from him. I graduated in truck sales at Rooster.
Yeah. Well, let's go back now. When you came home, you stayed with the National Guard. Now, you were a captain when you got out of, at the end of World War II, when you came home, you were a captain by that time?
I was a captain. I was promoted. I don't know how they done it. I was promoted within a month after I got on Tinian. And I said, I come in from taking a shower up there. They had the tents and the big water bucket hold in. Come in, and Colonel Gardner, Roy Johnson, was sitting in there in Wakefield, Lieutenant Wakefield, and I started to put my uniform on, and they had captain bars on it. And I said, boy, I've been over here too long with all that stuff. Who in this so-and-so is messing up with me? Colonel Gardner said, oh, Teddy, he said, oh, I said, how did that go through when I'm on a table of organization called for a first lieutenant over the automotive maintenance? And I first don't ask you how you done that. And how did you get it approved? He says it went to General Twining's headquarters on Guam. Didn't take a couple of days. And he says, don't worry about it. He says, you're now the S3 of the 25th Service Group, but you're physically going to stay with your trucks. Says Major Garwich was old and says we're sending him home. And he was the S3. Mm-hmm. And S3 is a plans and training officer. I mean, I'd have hated to have met somebody and asked me a question on that, but he said, you would stay where he was. So I did. And talk about the other, I was promoted in 1953 to a major. Instead of captain on the other part. Had service battery. I formed service battery in 1950. A lot of the boys right here in town now, retired school teachers, all that. Had a great outfit.
Was it formed as a new unit?
It is, in other words, we had always had headquarters.
Right.
And Raleigh told Colonel Roy Thompson, said, if you all got the personnel, said, we'll give you service battery. And Roy said to me, he says, Ted, you want to come off of the battalion staff, said, you take service battery and give you a cadre out of that, and give me 8 men out of the headquarters battery. Buck Rhodes is one of them, and Hal Moore. So formed service battery, and we had a good summer camp, everything just like we did that.
Now, that was 1950?
That was, it is 50 that we formed it, and it was still, well, it was still there when, service battery was still there when I got out in 59.
Now, the current National Guard building, of course, I think everybody watching our show today knows that there are plans that there'll be a new, of course, they don't call them armories anymore, they call them readiness centers. There's going to be a new readiness center built, and that the current location actually is going to be torn down. When the current National Guard building, when was that built?
1952 when it's completed. I was at the meeting there whenever when the adjutant general and about 10 other colonels and majors was there downstairs.
Yes. And
when he put actually we're going to have an armory. You know, it'd been debated, and he said it's going to be it this time. But I could not and I do not understand now why that building has to be tore down and then build something up yonder the other side of Blue Ridge Electric from the armory to live till the others build up.
All right, let's go back to the organization of the service unit. Did you have to go out and recruit additional members?
What we did, he gave, Colonel Thompson gave me a cadre of about 5 or 6 men, could have been 8, and a first sergeant of personnel to do the personnel work, and automotive maintenance man. And see, service batteries was a job that we done supplied everything for the battalion, you know, the service battery was. And we had 2 lieutenants, 1 captain, and I believe about 70 men. But we were right there and drilled the same time that the others did, and of course we went out on field trips and everything else. We used to take the whole battalion to Lake James at the upper end of it, and Grandfather Mountain for maneuvering. But the service battery was still active. Now, I don't remember, when I left in 59, that's when I stayed exactly 30 years to the day, June the 1st, 59, I left, And I don't remember when they switched over to the transportation.
All right, let's talk about the 86 men that left here and who all came back. And you talked a little bit about some of the ones that stayed in. Now, you stayed in until 59. Were there others that stayed in?
There's, let's see, of course, I was the last one that I know of to retire out, 59, because we have, once a year, we have meetings at the Armory of those people that have served 20 years or more. And they had me in charge of the program one night, and I said, I want to see the hands of you retirees. Them that retired in 50 and 60, nobody, 70 and 80. 80 and 90 is when they retired. It made me feel that much older because I'd got out in 59.
Yeah.
But see, this headquarters here, we were affiliated with Forest City at one time, Spindale, Boone still is, North Wilkesboro, Granite Falls, never Hickory. Hickory was always in a different outfit. But about 5 or 6 units here, and when we have meetings here, this headquarters battery, and wow, that's why they come back in the 20-year men.
Now, of that 80-some, 86 guys who left, over the years, have you guys had to, have you tried to have reunions to get them all back together?
He's the best reunion man in the country. We started, Punk, was it in the 60s or 70s?
60s.
We've had, every year in September, we would have now, they let me come. This is Europe's crowd. But anyhow, the bunch that went to Europe, that's it. They had a reunion every year in September, and for up until last year, this year, some of them fellows got too old to travel. But they had it here in Lenore, but Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and you'd be surprised to come up there just able to walk or anything. We lost one of my best friends hired camel from Maiden just a short time ago. He's one that come to our outfit, got assigned, or he requested to get in there, and we had openings after in Fort Jackson. And I reckon that he had more friends, and he loved them boys, the ones there, and they're so close together in Europe and all.
But we had reunions everywhere. We went.
Now, do you still do it? Do you still do the reunions?
Well, we did it this past year.
Yeah.
I had it here in Lenore. But we had one in Charlotte. We went from Charlotte to Atlanta. Went from Atlanta to Asheville. Went from Asheville to Washington.
Went to the beach.
And didn't go to
Moorhead City?
Oh, well, that's a different beach. I thought when you say beach, I think about Myrtle. No, you're right. We went down, that's where the colonel lived. And we went down there and had one there. And came back to, we've had 2 times in Nashville. And we went to Pigeon Forge, and we had it 4 times there. And then we came back to the Lenore, but we're losing so many people.
But when you had your reunion this past September, how many came?
We didn't have but 11. I believe it's, wait a minute, let me count.
I think it was about 11.
It's 11, I believe it's 11 anyhow, and then there was. And we brought some of our members that lost their husbands, that we brought their wives.
Yeah, there was three widows there. We invite them every time, and this time they did come.
They come to Lenore, but they don't travel with us much. And so a lot of them are getting to where they can't drive.
So of that 86 who left here in 1940, how many are still living today?
I'm guessing not over.
I got,
Shucks, I don't,
I took the roster, the old original roster, and, left here, and I counted up here, it ain't been, well, it's right, I had my hip broken, couldn't even get nowhere. I sat and worked there, and I believe I just come up with 14 as a still alive,
that's about it.
out of the whole bunch.
Well, listen, you brought a picture with you. I'm gonna reach down here and get it. I want you to tell me about this picture. Just let me hold it up so the people at home can see it. But what is this picture?
This picture was made in Cook Stadium here at Lenore High School ballpark, the football field, when we were mobilized, getting ready to go to Fort Jackson in September of 1940. We were one of the first outfits to go. All those people that you see on there, to the best of my knowledge, went. Because it was anybody that's disabled or wasn't able to pass the exam, well, wouldn't. But that was the bunch that's ready to go. And I could point out there's not many of them living there. It's on that.
But this picture was actually taken
It is taken right there,
right up here at the.
right in the Cook Stadium in the football field, because the old wooden stands are still up towards College Avenue.
It's on the
behind it.
southwest side as you walk in from Harper Avenue.
Now, will you have a reunion this September?
We're planning on it, but we've got a couple that are not going to be able to come, and they're supposed to be in charge of it this time. I know what he'll do. He'll holler for me to do it.
Do you know where this year's reunion will be held?
I guess it'll be right back here again.
Covered in last time.
And I probably will have to take over because Pete's supposed to be here. Pete's not doing
He's
too
not-
well, but
not
he's
that
in pretty
good.
good shape. But I'm hoping he can. His wife's had a serious operation.
Yeah.
When we were getting ready for this reunion, as I say, or it had already, Punk was already working on it, CP was. And I had nothing to do, as I say, but nurse that broke hip. And I talked to him a time or two. I said, I'm going to see if I can't get some of the boys that never has come. There's a few scattered around. That'll be fine. Then I said, let's do something like we used to do. We'll have a little prize for that comes the farthest. That'd be fine, Ted. And I said, it'd be nice if we had a little prize for them the closest to us. Well, wait a minute, you live right at that thing. Well, he keeps the thing going. He's one of those ramrods. Whenever anybody else turns down a job, he can do it.
They just holler, so we have to do.
But at Pigeon Forge, they look forward to us. We was at the same place every time, and it's just nice as it can be. And
We've had a good time. We've enjoyed life, and we hope we keep health enough to do it. I look after him. He's my dad.
Yeah. All right, CP, I know the P in your name does not stand for punk.
That's right.
Where'd that nickname come from?
Well, I was about 7 or 8 years old. I don't know did you know Clarence Holden? Clarence's sister, Mary. We lived on Wilson Street. And we were playing with what you could make up, and most of them was blocks that you get from the shops here in town. And they had already got them all scattered over her family's yard. So I went down there, and I guess I was playing too, but when it come time, I knew I had made that mess. But anyhow, they said, you got to put those blocks up. I said, I'm not putting it up. And Mary said, well, you're a punk. And her mother heard her. She was standing up there, and she was one of these that just come in dying laughing. She told the whole neighborhood, and it stuck with me. And more people know me by that than they do my regular name, my preacher. And I hate to say this. I go to the First Baptist Church up here, he can maybe see this thing because he said one day, he said, I hate to keep calling you that. He said, what is your name? I said, David, do you not know my name?
Nickname's
He said,
Farmer.
no. And I said, well, my name is Columbus, but I'd never have liked it, but I was handed it. And have you ever seen any spaces made the check big enough to put Columbus Philip Kincaid on? So I go by Punk, but a lot of people call me CP now.
Well, I'm the last of our family of 10. I tell them the last of the Mohicans, but there was 5 girls and 4 boys, 6 girls and 4 boys. Ruby, my wife, it's like old custom like years ago, Sunday dinners always. And they got through eating yesterday and something was mentioned about nicknames or something or other. And I said, when they put on me in the Army, I said, I don't like it much. Cindy's son, the youngest. What was it, Daddy? I said, they call me Speedy. Speedy? He said, you ain't never moved in your life. And of course, I just made it up for her, but she asked, I told her this morning, she said, now she'll have the critique when she sees that, I guarantee you.
Well, Ted, before we close, you talked about 1950, the unit was going to get put back on active duty, but you were lucky, I guess, and that you didn't have to go to Korea. But now, only about perhaps a little over 12 years ago, that unit was activated again. Went to the Gulf War. Now, were you still closely associated with it? You retired in '59, but do you ever really retire?
I did. I thought it would be hard, but it wasn't. But I went quite often. I still go often. The thing that's a little bit unusual to me is that when you go in the office, that you see 2 fine-looking girls there that they're not there as nurses. They belong to it and I talked to one not long ago, and she was in the Gulf War. They don't think anything about it. I can't quite get used to it as far as out of there, but a lot of them, like Harvey Hartley, Jack Robbins, who retired from Kincaid Furniture, he was the maintenance part. There's not any of our old crowd left. It's all a new bunch just down there. But they get the training. I take the National Guard when it comes to me and all these military books and all, but it amazes me the technology and the things they've done toward warfare and all that. Somebody that's in World War II, like we was, it's Greek. Everything's Greek to us. But I still, and I also, y'all have been out to Bill went out there, took a picture to where the new armory's going to be built. But that's going to be a big thing.
But now technology certainly has changed. But when you guys were activated in 1940, and this local unit was activated in 1990, 50 years later, they went to the Gulf War. The technology part has changed, but now that human element, I'm thinking probably, Ted, is still the same. You were down there when those guys left in 1990. Mm-hmm. You're talking about guys who are being separated from their families and going off perhaps to war. And again, now technology certainly has changed, but that human part's still the same, I would think, isn't it?
It is, and then you stop in another way. I believe don't have seen any statistics or nothing, but I believe that there's more married men with children now that's just like these that went to the Gulf. In our outfit, there wasn't a whole lot of married people, was there? I mean, we was
You know what hurts me the most about that is to see the women folks go off and leave their little children.
Yeah.
because I think that a woman needs to be.
Well, but that's a choice they
I
have
know
today.
they say that, but
Yeah.
I think it'll show up more there than it will within the man
Yeah.
if he just left.
But at least today, as opposed to 1940, of course, in World War II, women certainly were part of the military, but
Oh yeah, they were in the group like they're on the ways
Yeah.
and what have you. And,
You asked me long at the first about there when 29, 30, or the Guard was going, just what was sort of the main thing, or why did it do so well, or something on the part. Right now, we had, well, of course, the Depression started in 29. A lot of those boys joined there to get that money.
yeah.
I mean, they had done their job, but that we got
Had extra.
$1 a day, and we got $15 for 15 days in camp, and there wasn't no special duty on it. So the economy was so bad. Cap Williams, you paid off every 3 months. So Cap Williams would have the banks to get silver dollars, paid everybody off in silver dollars, and they'd be spread more all over the grocery store and all over down. The economies are getting better. We paid, I don't know how many times paid in silver dollars.
But
But
you made $1 a day.
But Lord, you could take that dollar and get a poke of flour or beer if you need to, whatever, you know. It's just,
probably getting more
I never
than
live in the past on that, but I can tell what, you know, see what did thing on it.
Yeah.
If somebody comes up and, let's say somebody goes to trade cars, and then I've had it thrown in my face so much in selling during 40 years. Well, I didn't pay, but so-and-so. Well, time changes prices and everything else on it.
Now, this is a little off the subject, but back in the 70s, you got into politics, I believe, didn't you, Ted? Now, what office did you run for? What office did you win?
I was born and raised a Republican because my daddy and mama was raised Republicans. It's the Republican Party, and I was approached by several people. Well, I was a truck sales manager in farm equipment. They wanted me to run for county commissioners, and I said, "Oh, we used to run and get beat." Anyway, I did and went in, and so I had a full slate of county commissioners.
Now, what year was that?
You can clear me if you both of you sure that Carter, did he go in 76? He must have, because when from 72 to 76.
Well, during that period of time that you served as a commissioner, 72 to 76, what were some of the issues facing the county at that time?
All right, I'll tell you, is a pretty progressive time, because we, and I say we, and the school board acquired West Caldwell's land for Mr. Beecher Anderson. Then they got High Brighton, and then established the other one. We put the landfill in up there on the mountain down at Hudson. But the schools were the biggest things on it. But it's interesting to me on the county commissioners there, because every party would have a representative or somebody there, and for their budget. And we didn't have much trouble, didn't have an awful big budget on it, but if it was reasonable, we would raise or what some. The sheriff's department and Lord, I can't remember all of them as it was, in Social Security or Social Service. But they were Clarence Holt, and I'll say he was a worker in Brawl Hill Furniture. Clarence died shortly, but he was a real good, somebody that loved to work at it. And I reckon then when we went out, Clarence and all of them said, "Now we'll go back next year," and I had a hunch it was going to be a Democrat year. I don't know why, but it did. And so we were swept out.
So did you ever have thoughts of running again?
No, I didn't. One of my closest friends working at Smith Crossroads and was there. Rural Query was a car sales manager, smart, fine fellow. So when he saw these, and he was a strong Democrat, and we were great friends, saw these people coming asking me, he said, "What did?" I said, "They want me to run for county commissioner." He said, "I'll tell you, if you run, you might get it. But if you do, I'll leave town." I said, "Okay.
Him saying that.
You don't have to. I ain't gonna get it no how. This is the truth." As if I hadn't been telling the truth on it. I mean, I'm trying to keep it straight as I can. But he, the day I was elected, the day it was announced, I went into work in there, and Rule was at his desk with a briefcase and putting his stuff in it. And he'd already that morning called Giles Motors in Morganton and got in his car and drove over there.
Of course, I know everybody knows who Tom Brokaw is, and he, a year or so ago, wrote a book, best-selling book, called you guys The Greatest Generation. Were you?
I'll tell you, I don't know about that, but I've thought about it a lot. I've got his book, and I've read the book. And he's been, before he ever wrote that, one of my favorite newsmen. But, you know, I don't think that I'm not going to say disrespect for the armed forces or whatever. I didn't see many people in our generation that ever balked when it's called on to go with a job to do. And you know, this one of the things in our country today, one of the biggest things that's hurting is drugs. And to my knowledge, there's never no drugs in that generation in World War II.
I never heard of drugs unless somebody had.
But it started in the Korean, but I mean, that can't fault the people on that part, but that's one reason he's got a good, and people were honorable, I think a little bit more on the thing, and most of them was raised to be honest, pay their debts, and serve the country if they needed to. It wasn't a fast life, because with most of us there, everybody went through the Depression, and I think the Depression helped make that, as Tom Brokaw called, the greatest generation. I would think, I'd hate to see one try to challenge it. And all the Depression stuff that they went through, it taught all of us. And nobody turned anybody down that I know of. It's decent. They had money or needed money. The banks, you could go to the bank, and if you was anyways honest, there was no financing. You'd assign this note. That was all during this generation and the war. So that's the main thing, way I sum it up.
Yeah. Well, CP, what about you? You see differences in the generations?
No. Well, I see some difference. I think it's there, and we can't help it. I can't do nothing about a lot of it. But I spent 4.5 years in the Army, and I don't regret a bit of it. I had a good time. I enjoyed life. But in the war, we had enough of it, but you just had to take what you had, and you went on with it. But I think the majority of the people were over there, they wanted to fight that war. I never heard anybody say, I want to go home. I'm just tired of this war. We're not supposed to be over in the first place. We knew we had to finish that thing. So I'm a firm believer that the type of soldier that we had, and we had some different types. Now, I'm not saying Everybody was perfect, but they were dedicated to do the job. And I think that's where a lot of his comes in.
Yeah.
And we've lived through the best generation of anybody.
Well, the Depression was tough.
That's right.
World War II, certainly.
I don't remember much about it. I don't know whether I told you. My daddy worked for the city of Illinois. He worked 40-some years. And you ask George Barnhart, and he'll say my daddy run this town. But Williams was the town manager, mayor.
In name.
That's right, because he always called my daddy when anything had to come up. They did this whole town. They looked after the streets. They looked after the water.
Yeah.
But this generation, I would say that I don't know how I'm living through one, so I don't know how to quite try to get that part in. I don't know.
One shot's all we
One
get.
shot I get, and that's it.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming and talking with me today and sharing experiences, civilian soldiers to full-time military, and I really appreciate you guys coming by and telling
Well, I thank you for having me. But
Yeah,
I
we
wish
feel
I'd have
honored.
known what I was going to be doing. I'd have kept a little bit more check about some of the numbers after you.
You did well. You guys, I think, told the truth the whole way through.
He told stuff that I didn't even know about his reunion. When you got to reunion, you got so much else to do and something to do.
Well,
Don't much
right.
talk about it, you know.
I know it. You don't see a soldier talk about
They
their.
I heard know more about what he done over there than.
And I think that's pretty standard what you would hear from family members of the guys who were in World War II. They came back, they really didn't talk about their experiences.
Well, they don't want to tell about killing anybody.
Y'all got a record, or they got a record, you talk about them had been killed. The first man, am I not right, the first man, Lee Powell, because that post is not named after Lee Powell, Post 29. He belonged to the Navy. He joined he was my age with his friends. He lived across the creek over on what's now Powell Road, across Pennell. Charlemont, and Lee Powell joined the Navy in about 1937, 36 or 7, and I believe it was I'm not sure whether it was a torpedo, it wasn't the Japanese, it was in the Germans, I think, but Lee was number one of killed from Lenore.
CP, Ted, thank you guys very much for being with me today and sharing your experiences. Ted, you from 1929 when you first went in the National Guard, but I know a lot of people appreciate hearing the history of Caldwell County and the people who actually took part in going from civilian soldiers into World War II and being in concentration camps or being on an island where the atomic bomb was put on an airplane. But thank you guys very much for sharing your part of history with me. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to CP and Ted. And as Ted Brokaw so eloquently put in his book, I truly believe these guys were part of this nation's greatest generation. Thank you very much for watching Caldwell County today. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our show today, and I hope you really appreciated the comments and stories that Ted Seehorn and C.P. Kincaid were able to tell us of their time in World War II. Now, before we close today's program, we're going to be bringing to you some audio clips and some music from the time prior to and during World War II. And I hope you enjoy this music of that period as we close our show. And as you listen to that music from that era, we're going to to scroll across the screen the names of the 91 men who left Lenore with that National Guard Armory unit.
This is John Daly speaking from the CBS newsroom in New York. Here is the Far East situation as reported to this moment. The Japanese have attacked the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and our defense facilities at Manila, capital of the Philippines. The first disclosure of this news was made by Presidential Secretary Stephen Early by telephone at approximately 2:25 in Washington. I read the text of this historic announcement at a little after 2:30. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor from the air, and all naval and military activities on the island of Oahu, the principal American base in the Hawaiian Islands. That was Secretary Early's message. Short while later, he dictated another message. A second air attack has been reported. This one has been made on the Army and Navy bases in Manila. And here's a last-minute Associated Press flash from Honolulu. A naval engagement is in progress off Honolulu with at least one black enemy aircraft carrier in action against the Pearl Harbor defenses. Secretary Early informed all correspondents and then rushed to the White House to be with President Roosevelt. As the announcement was made, the two Japanese envoys, Ambassador Nomura and Special Emissary Kurosu, were at the State Department. Columbia's correspondent in London, Bob Trout, heard the news for the first time from our report from New York. Up to that moment, or very shortly before then, the British capital had not been informed of the Japanese attack on the Hawaiian Islands and on Manila. In view of Prime Minister Churchill's recent pledge that a British declaration of war on Japan would follow almost immediately upon the outbreak of war between Japan and the United States, a British announcement is expected soon. Columbia's correspondent, Ford Wilkins, was put on the air in CBS's regular 2:30 news program on Sunday afternoon from Manila. He was cut off the air suddenly while he was talking about air raid shelters, possibly because of censorship. In communication with Columbia's radio station, KGMD in Honolulu, we heard here in New York that the Pearl Harbor base had been attacked and anti-aircraft fire was heard. A telephone message to the United Press from Fort Schaefer in Hawaii said that 50 planes attacked the island of Oahu. The planes were officially described so far as unidentified in these messages, although later reports that have come in from the press associations definitely identify at least two of these planes as carrying the emblem of the rising sun, the emblem of Japan.